here today for Crafty Cafe, and for today's project I'm going to be using the Hey There stamp set from Lawn Fawn to create a birthday card. I'm also going to be pulling in this dotted stencil from Tim Holtz, as well as this texture paste. This is the opaque crackle one, and this is from Ranger, and I'm going to be using that along with the stencil to create my background. So to begin, I'm going to start working on my background since I know that that's going to take a little bit of time to dry, and I want it to dry naturally rather than drying it with a heat tool. So I've pulled out a piece of Tim Holtz watercolor cardstock and I've taped it down onto a non-stick board. This is just a Ranger craft sheet that I've adhered onto a board, and I'm going to mix up some crackle paste. So I've pulled out a palette knife and just put a blob on my work surface here. Then I've squished down some Peacock Feathers Distress Oxide inks, and I'm just mixing in that crackle paste with the Distress Oxide ink colour. And this creates a really pretty pastel blue background that I'm just going to apply to the top of this stencil. Then I've gone ahead and done the same thing for the Twisted Citron colour, mixed that with the texture paste, and then I'm spreading on the bottom of my stencil. Once I've cleaned up my work surface and I've got that texture placed all down flat over my stencil, I just went ahead and removed the stencil, and then I went ahead and put that in water straight away so it didn't dry on there. Next up, while my background is drying, I can stamp and colour my images. So I'll be using the Hey There stamp set and just using the cow and the pig and the chicken, and also the horse and a few of the fences. And then I also pulled in a little balloon from Party Animal. This balloon from Party Animal is one of my most used stamps of all time. I just love using that balloon for so many different stamp sets because it makes it quite birthday themed. Now I am colouring in my images, so I'm first starting off with colouring in this cow with some black spots. Obviously I want there to be a little bit of shading on the cow spots, so in order to sort of make those spots as black as possible, I just used a lot of dark grey colours to blend those out and sort of make it appear black but with a little bit of shading, because of course if you use a black marker then you're just going to go over the lines and you're not going to get any of that shading and it's going to look really bland and plain. So once I finish doing the spots, I'm just moving on and using a few lighter warm greys for the cow, and again if you want something to appear more white, just use a few light greys and it really brings it out. Now I am using my favourite E50 markers for the horse, so I'm going lighter on his body, so I'm using E57, going in with E55 to blend that out, and then I'm blending that all together with E53. And so I'm using the lighter colours mainly on his body because a lot of that area was brown and I didn't want him to be too dark. So once I finished colouring him all in with the E50, I'm going to use basically the same colours but drop the E53 and pull in E59, and I'm going to colour in his little mane and his tail with those darker colours. Now I am moving on to colour in my little pig, so I am pulling out some R80s for this. I'm starting off with R85 and just going in where I think the darkest areas would be. Then I'm pulling in R83 and blending that R85 out. Then I'm finishing off with R81 and blending that all together. Once I finished off pink, I'm moving on to colouring my chickens, so I'm just using some yellows for this. Starting off with Y35, blending that out with Y15 and blending that all together with Y11. Now that I've finished colouring my chickens, I can move on to colouring my fences. I did skip their little noses, but I just used some light R markers for that. For my fences, I decided to go in with an E40 combination just because I wanted it to be quite different from the horse. Because these fences are going to be in the background, I just didn't want it competing or anything like that with the horse colouring, so I decided to go for a very different brown combination, and these are like, I think, quite of a grey brown, I would say. So I'm using E47, E44 and E43 as my combination, and I'm just blending those all together. So once I finished colouring in my fences, I just moved on to colouring in my balloon. So I was sort of going through what colours I had used and decided to just use some sort of aqua tealy colours for the balloon. So I'm using BG23, BG32 and BG11 for the balloon. Once I finished colouring all those in, I used all of the coordinating dies and cut them out. Now that all of my images are die cut out, I can work on putting my card together. So I pulled off my background off my craft sheet, made sure it was dry. It was pretty much dry and I really love that crackling texture on there, but I just quickly hit it with my heat tool to make sure that it was definitely dry and my images would stick down to it nicely. So I arranged my images out on my background and then used some little foam dots to adhere all of my little critters down. So these are just some round foam dots. I just used a couple on each of the images. Now I'm peeling off the backers and adhering them into place how I was showing before. I like to arrange my scene before I adhere anything down, so I make sure that I get perfect placement. So I just finished up adhering all of my images down and I really love this cute little scene. I think it's really adorable. Then I just went off camera and I white heat embossed a happy birthday sentiment onto a black strip of cardstock. This is just the happy birthday sentiment from Hey There, and I just used some Lawn Fawn white embossing powder and also some Lawn Fawn black cardstock for that. Now I'm using the really rainbow paper pad from Lawn Fawn as well, and I just pulled out this green pattern. I thought that it was the most fitting since I like a lot of green on my cards, and so I really needed another pop of green since that green sort of crackle paste didn't really work as well as I'd hoped it would. Then I just added some fun foam on the back of my panel and adhered onto the green paper. Then I adhered the entire thing onto a white card base. So that finishes up my card for today. I hope you enjoyed. Make sure that you check down below for all of the supplies that I used, and also make sure that you check back in a couple of weeks as I will be using this stamp set once again to create a different occasion of card. So thank you so much for watching and I will catch you all next time.